Welcome to another My Garage video. In this episode, we're going to be tackling brake line flares. More specifically, we're going to be tackling the bubble flare, which is the most common flare used on automobiles today. So let's get started. I want to bring you over and have you take a look at some of the tools that we're going to be using for this task. And right here, we have our double flaring tool, which I'm going to set that to the side right now. I'm going to make that video, but this is the one that I want to focus on, and this is our bubble flaring tool. The reason for that is that there seems to be a lot of videos out on the web that cover double flaring, but really not too many, if any, on bubble flaring. And the bubble flare is the brake line flare that's used on all production automobiles today and has been since about 1995. It's a much stronger flare to accommodate late model vehicles that have higher brake pressure. Okay. So anyhow, here's what that double flare is looking like. You may or may not have seen before this video. That's just their standard double flare, and this flare was used all the way up, like I said, till about 1995, and manufacturers went with the ISO flare, International Standard Organization standard flare, which is now the bubble flare. So let me go ahead and show you how to make that. And in the next video, I can cover, I'll most certainly cover the double flare as well. Okay, so in our toolkit, what we have, is we're going to have our anvil for the bubble, making our bubble flares. We've got our flaring tool, and of course our dies. These dies, they come in different sizes. There's 4 different sizes, and these are in metric too, which is going to be a little bit different from what you may or may not be used to with our double flaring tool, which is in fractional. The normal size brake line that's been used for years and years and years is, and still is going to be our 3/16, and that's the diameter, of the brake line. Our inside diameter is 3/16. And I've called around to many manufacturers, part stores, etc., and I've asked them, I said, well, for years, the standard brake line was always 3/16. Well, how come on our bubble flaring tool, if you look, you're going to notice that it's all in metric. Okay, so how about that? And 4.75 millimeters is the smallest, and this is going to be what we would use for flaring brake line. Okay, so the response to my questions were just everybody out there is still using 3/16 brake line, but they're using it with that bubble flaring tool and putting it in the 4.75 millimeter hole. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. All right, so in order to make this bubble flare, I'll go ahead and I'll set it up in the vise. Let me go ahead and, because I certainly don't want to hold this tool with my hand. If I do, it's just a lot more strenuous to try and hold this with my hand and make my flares. This way, if I go ahead and put it in the vise, sorry about that, then it just seems a lot easier to make that flare, and it's certainly a lot better quality. Okay, and in this video, I'm just going to stick to making that bubble flare. I'm going to go ahead and cut off a little section of my brake line, and this is what I have the students do in my class, is go ahead and cut off about a length of a finger's worth, of brake line. Let me kind of get on the other side so you can see that a little better. And of course, using our tubing cutter, we're just going to go ahead and chop off a piece of it. And depending how strong your grip is, you should be able to hold the brake line. Sometimes as you're holding it in your hands, it's going to turn the brake line, and just makes it kind of difficult. If that's the case, what you can do is just take that piece of brake line, go ahead and put it in your flaring vise, like that, and just snug it down. And now you can go ahead and cut that off a heck of a lot easier sometimes doing it that way rather than trying to hold on to it. Okay. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get started making this bubble flare. I do have my bubble flare fitting, okay, and that's what it looks like. And I'm going to let me go ahead and grab another one. That would be our bubble flare fitting, and if you remember, that's what that one probably looks like, okay. And this is what it looks like for our bubble flare, and then this is our double flare. So you can see that they're colored in green. I've seen some that are red as well, but anyhow, this is the fitting that you're going to want to use when doing your bubble flare. Okay. Normally, when I'm flaring the brake line, I'll go ahead and put this fitting down over first. Okay, if I'm doing a really long piece of brake line, because once I have the flare on there, I'm not going to be able to slide this down over. But just for this demonstration, it's a small piece, so I could kind of slide it on the other way. You know, I just want to make that flare so you can see it. So, okay. Anyhow, I'm going to take that piece of 3/16" brake line, and I'm putting it in the hole that has 4.75. Okay, it's the smallest. And I'm just going to snug it down a little bit, and I'm going to take my file, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean off any debris that might be on top. Okay, it's just a little special touch, I guess, that I like to do. I think it makes a little bit better flare. So, you know, I'm just taking a little bit. I'm only going in the forward direction, and that's it. That's all I wanted to do. And of course, we're going to open that up a little bit with our tubing tool. Okay, and I can take this cutting blade out, all right, on my tubing tool, and put that inside of there, and that's going to clean out any debris that might be inside. Okay, looks good. All right, now we want to go ahead and make sure that we select our correct size die. All right, so let's take a look at that. And here we have some different dies to choose from. And of course, how this works is the die is just going to thread right onto the tool. And right on the edge, okay, right on the edge of that, you may or may not be able to see that, but it's going to say 4.75. That's the kind of die that we want to use for flaring our 3/16" brake line. Okay, and how that works is we'll just go ahead and thread that right on there. Okay, make sure it's nice and snug. Then we're going to go back over here to our material. I'm going to reposition the camera here so that maybe you can see a little bit better. I'm hoping. Okay, and what I need to do with my material next is get it nice and flat with my vise here. So I'm going to loosen the wing nuts, and I'm just using the file as a straight edge. It's not a hammer. Remember, files are very delicate, and we don't want to break them. Okay, so if I put that file and I lay it on top, I'm just moving that piece of material up until I can feel it contacting the file. Then I'm going to go ahead and snug down my tool. And notice, as I'm snugging down the wing nuts, what I'm not using, okay? Because sometimes what I see students do, or even technicians out in the field, is over time, you know, I know these things, you know, maybe your hands are a little bit tired or something, and they'll take a screwdriver and they'll put it in that wing nut, and this is a file, I understand that, you know, so I'm not going to do it, and they'll use that for leverage, okay? That's something that we don't want to do. It should be finger tight, okay? And once we get that tightened down the way that we want it, we'll go ahead, install our flaring tool. I'm just going to run that down, okay, until I get the die inside of the line. Okay, once that die's in the line, which it is, now I'm going to go ahead and just slowly tighten my tool down until I feel it stop, okay? There it is. I'm not putting any pipes over this or any additional force. It's, you know, it's not necessary. Okay, I'm just going hand tight. back the tool off. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and take our piece of brake line out of our vise. And there you have it. We have a nice bubble flare. Okay. And if I were to slide my fitting over there, that's what it would look like. Okay. So that's going to be our segment on the bubble flare, which again, this is the flare that is most common. It is on all cars, 95 and newer. So if you're using those double flares out there still, you can, okay, but you may want to consider moving over until the bubble to using the bubble flares. It is a lot more strong of a hydraulic connection. So something to think about anyhow, but anyhow, good luck making your flares. Don't get upset with yourself if your first few flares aren't as good looking as that one is. That's fine. Remember, practice makes perfect. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up. Thanks.